beloved Ascension Pioneers, and welcome to my Ascension Update. Boy, it's been really a long time since I recorded the last Ascension Update, and this Ascension Update will cover everything that we are going through at this particular time as we're moving into a new year. This is still a time of transition, but this transition is actually making us feel different than we ever felt before. And I want to move deeper into this, but first I want to cover a very important topic, which is the working with our inner magician self. I'm still noticing very many examples when we don't do that. When we forget how powerful we are, and instead of working our magic, and instead of working with energy, learning how to navigate through our own inner creativity, which is the source of all divine love, and everything that is divine about all life and creation. And instead we rather give the power away, and we feed these stories that are really, really old. I want to share two examples with you. First example is, I received this email from somebody telling me that I'm wrong when I talk about the topic of twin flames, and that in truth, twin flames are sent here for the purpose of really suffering, going through darkness, and there was a lot of this dark stuff, okay, coming up. So as I was reading this email, what Spirit was showing me that there's a lot of excuses that we still feed ourselves. And again, this deals with this. This deals with us not embracing love as it is. And when we don't do that, we create a certain reality. We say, well, this is just how it is. And because it is our own experience, when we're not aware enough, we clearly sometimes project this as an overall experience. So when somebody's not experiencing that and they share more maybe through something else, like I share through love, somebody will say, this is not how it is, period, you're wrong. But let me tell you something. These stories, and when we talk about particularly in these dark matters, is not there to make us stuck in that realm, okay? So when that person told me that the true nature of twin flames is to suffer, and they're actually fighting a war against darkness and all of this stuff, I'm like, okay, maybe that's your personal experience, but is it really the truth? Is it what you perceive as the ultimate? Is it really the ultimate? Ask yourself some really important questions. And when anybody tells me that the true nature of beloved deals with suffering and pain and dying and all of this, there's so much drama with this. It's just something that, because we experience a certain reality and we project that to the whole, so we make it the absolute, which is not. The only absolute truth is divine love. And just because we maybe haven't fully integrated in our own reality, because we don't experience it, we don't need to project it to the grand universal truth as it is. So there's still a lot of souls who are moving between this duality concept, and they're still learning and integrating through that, which is all fine. But let me ask you this very important question. How can the true nature of beloveds, which is your primal creation core self, as you burst out when you're birthed as an individualized soul essence, the spark of God, that is fully godly in your nature, how can your purpose be anything else but full expression of that source creativity, divine love? Anything else that you experience on different levels, dimensions, densities, and the stories you're feeding yourself, it's not the absolute. It never will be. So when you tell another that, they're just an illusion because they talk about love, because twin flames are not experiencing love, they're experiencing death, loss, separation, fighting, sacred wars, let me remind you something. You can't say a holy war or sacred war in the same sentence, because war, how can a war be holy? What is holy is the truth of divine love. What is war is the experience of separation. And this is something that we clearly need to understand, that whenever we do that and we project this to the whole as it is, and it's the absolute, we clearly are still coming from separation. And just because we're not experiencing it and we're not yet awakening our inner magician, which can create anything, then doesn't mean it needs to be the whole, that this is the truth as it is, period. We need to start waking up to our inner magician self. The other example is, I've shared this post from somebody from this page who shared a beautiful Vesica Pisces symbol in the sky, and it was written in clouds. And I shared that because it was a Vesica Pisces, and it felt magical. And the next morning I wake up and everybody's sharing about, oh, that's bad, that's chemtrails and all of that. So feeding power away, and You know, the only person that was actually coming from love and openness, that might be something more behind it, that there always is, was somebody that said, what if our guides and our brothers and sisters created this sacred geometry to clear the skies? And I'm like, bravo, you see, this is how our inner magician perceives things, through love. And not just that, and not just giving the power to our brothers and sisters, but it is time, my beloved family of light, because we're moving into a very important year when we are clearly moving deeply into to the abyss of the photon belt. And as this is going to take place, there's going to be a lot of lightening. And because with this lightening, there's going to be lots of purging with this density. And our perceptions are just going to start dissolving one by one. And we need to start with feeding ourselves the power of our inner magician. So it's not just perceiving things as, wow, the angels are creating magic, our brothers and sisters, our galactic families creating magic. But you were sent here on this planet because you're aware of these things, so you can do the same. If you weren't in physical embodiment, you would never have the same influence and the same power as you do when you have form. It is the gift, it is the divine gift, expression, your form. How you can radiate love, how you can show love in action. So there's a reason why you didn't just stay in the ethereal realms, but you moved here for a very specific purpose. So you can utilize it, so you can culminate it, so you can really start to birth a new era. And it starts with tiny steps, but they're all important. And I feel that once we really start to embrace not the cynical approach, and when we give those, the elite, the governments, the structures and all of that power in terms of, look at what they're doing, you know, they're messing up our skies, or, you know, look at these sacred wars, you know, they're fighting, and, you know, we're just watching along, and it's so, don't you know how bad it is? You know, we have these constant dialogues about it that are just not our true self. They're not our true nature, because our true nature knows that if somebody has the power to create these things, well, then we have the power to create our own things, because we were all given this infinite creativity. And just because there's a few beings that decided to walk a path that's not source connected, that they decided to be independent and live through power, not through divine love, and to use that power to also manipulate sometimes other beings and greater structures such as planetary existences, the thing is that still, that same power of the infinite, because we're plugged into source, because we're plugged through love, we have even more power. The only difference between us and those who are already creating these structures is that we are not using it. We're just observing sometimes what others are doing, and we're not taking our own wands and saying, I'm going to play the magician too. So when you're looking at the sky, right, and you're looking at things and structures and you feel, ooh, that's something heavy, that's something dense, instead of going in that mode when you're like, oh, they're messing it up again, ask yourself, what can I do? I'm the magician, I have the same power. It's a game. It really is, and you're playing a game of love. Forget that not, you know, and start creating your secret symbols there. Start tuning, start chanting, start sending love. Start imagining that this is all like a beautiful board when anything that you want can be there. This is when you really live in love. Love is the infinite force of creativity. When you're not in that creative essence, you will be cynical. You will see things as this constant war, evil, light and dark, all these separation concepts. When you move through them, when you transcend like the great masters did, you really become that sacred alchemist, and you just embrace life and all that it offers you. So you no longer just see things from one perspective, but you give yourself the power to think beyond the known, think beyond these concepts that you might have felt are important. And it's time to stop feeding these old stories. And a lot of times when I talk to people, I see they're still limiting themselves. They're saying, this is how it is for me. I'm so sensitive. I'm so empathic. I'm this and that. It's okay. I understand. We're sensitive beings. Earth wasn't always a very welcoming place in some terms, right? Not the Earth itself, but the conditions of this planet. Earth itself is neutral and it's beautiful. But it's time, it's really time that we stop feeding these things, because the moment we're still clinging on those stories, the more we do it, we just keep holding on to it. Like, I'm grabbing this branch and I'm never letting go. I'm never going to experience new things. I'm never going to finally comply to another reality that I decide to. I choose to create and experience now in the new. So how do you activate your inner magician? This will be very important in 2015 and beyond. This will be so important because we're going to move from that isolated space of us and them, and we're comfortable here, to shining and spreading more outwardly as well. We needed this time sometimes to be alone, to find our own comfort space, to find how we're safe, and we find a space of belonging, but we're going to need to share that belonging with others. Sometimes even the people maybe before you separated from, because it was good for you and it was good for them. So these codependent issues and attachments could dissolve, and that when you approach people again, it could only be done by love. Love itself is all we need. It flows through us. Love is the infinite force of creativity. Love is creation. Well, the truth is that absolute which feeds that creativity. So they're both one. They don't exist without each other. It's time to realize that. And it's time to not just feed the truth, which is that source, it's the vertical, but also spread it horizontally. And the horizontal aspect is what we're going to continue to embody in the next years to come. So this is my main message. And a lot of this has to do with, for example, creating sacred rituals that are good for you. Because when you perform a sacred ritual for yourself, even if it's just a hand gesture, if it's a chanting you're doing, or singing, or something that elevates your frequency in a natural way, it connects you because it anchors the frequency of your higher vibration here, and it helps you to align with that purpose when you say, I'm willing to play a game that is full of love. It's just love. It's all there is, and it's creative. And when you perform a sacred ritual for yourself, whatever it is, even if it's just sitting there by the water, or just being yourself alone outdoors, or just creating this alignment ceremony, maybe with some natural, things like crystals and stones and flowers, I don't know, anything like that. And the thing is, by participating with this, you actually participate, you rejoice in life. And as you do so, you're going to activate more and more of your magician self, your true self, which is always limitless. It doesn't say, ooh, this is fated, this is how it is, it's very dark, this is how I perceive it. Is there another aspect to it? This is what your higher self says. Your higher selves, they know no duality. They live as masters of polarity. When you master the polarity, you bring both aspects into one, you create a circle. And just yesterday I had a session and I explained to my divine companion how easy these tiny attunements can help to build up a new flow of energy in our bodies. You know, our cells are like, we're reprogramming them, but in a new way. We're relearning again. We're just remembering how it is to be a natural self. We already existed this way before on this planet. It might be eons and eons and many stories in between. But remember, Ascension is a blank slate. It's when you start all over again, and it's with all these programs and memories and densities and experiences. They serve you until you get to this point, and then poof, you burst out, brand new birth of your soul in a new way as you start your ascension process. So you don't feed these stories to yourself anymore. You don't give yourself excuses. Well, that's just how it is. It's very fated. You're not cultivating your magic when you believe in this fatedness, you know, and you really haven't yet fully tapped into your infinite source potential. Source is where we need to go first before we start anything creative. We go to our source first, and we each have our own source connection. That's where these rituals that are very much natural to us will be aligning our energy and our perspective of source and how we connect to it. It will be different. No room for comparison here because we each have a different language and correspondence with source. And because we all travel in different ways, and therefore our experience in attuning to this might be different. But we don't need to compare. It's important that we feel that belonging space, that wholesome space within us, because then we really become the embodiment of these frequencies, and we live it, so we become the role models for others. If others see, wow, you know, this is an infinite creativity being. They always come up with resources, with different ways, with ideas. They're constantly receiving visions. How can I do that as well in my own way? And this is what's going to be important in years to come. The full embodiment and the merging of the vertical with the horizontal. I'm going to show you two very important short exercises, but very pivotal. You can do your own exercise in a very similar manner. These are just examples of what you can do, because when you experience certain things, sometimes in that moment you might get too overwhelmed or too infatuated by something, so you won't even think that sometimes such a simple exercise, just attunement alignment, can have such a profound effect on your well-being. right? So the first exercise is meant for when you feel yourself that, let's say you activate a lot of light, and you know as much light we activate, so much darkness sometimes comes through. And things will start coming up. And a lot of times people say to me, I feel overwhelmed. I can be so light, but then I get bogged down by all this darkness. This is because there's still separation. If there's no separation, this cannot happen. Because when we exist separation free, we won't perceive this as a separate experience. We will only see it as experience, neutral, pure, divine. So when you feel yourself in that space, what you can do is invite the experience of what makes you feel light. Invite the experience what makes you feel dark in that moment. And no longer say, ooh, this is how I feel when I feel light. This is how I feel when I feel dark. And just what you do is you imagine you're holding both polarities in your hands. And you say, I'm a master of polarity. I bring the aspects of light and dark into one, and I create wholeness. Imagine yourself creating a beautiful sacred circle. Circle always represents spirit. At that time, when you breathe deeply into it, create a sacred breath of life, which is the breath of union. Bring it into the circle and imagine that all these experiences that you might be feeling as in here and here are now merged into one. And say, I'm a master of polarity. I exist in unity consciousness. It's one exercise. The other exercise is when we sometimes are very much in our vertical self. We understand our spirit self, and I was talking about the merging of spirit and soul already in the video. And this time I want to give you a short exercise. And sometimes you feel that your horizontal experience does not match it, or you believe, you exist in this higher space, but your physical sometimes still creates separation, or you can't always perceive yourself, or you don't always fully allow yourself to be also happy in your human experience. A lot of times we push this aside because there was a lot of stories happening, eons and eons on this planet, and a lot of souls became so enmeshed in this that they still believe in this. So they feel if they're going to open up and embrace more of life, then this will happen again. They'll just keep recreating it. Stop again. Time for a new story. What you can do at this time is you embrace your vertical with your horizontal, which means that you allow yourself to be happy in the now. A lot of people sometimes say, ooh, I'm going to be very happy when we come to the fifth dimension. When I'm going to be in this dimension, I'm going to have these experiences and I'm going to be happy, and only when I get there, there's going to be a full experience of love. And I always say, how about now? You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the choices your soul is making, always consciously, but you have the right and you have the natural birth affinity to always create and cultivate joy of the soul here and now. And you do that by simply allowing it, by allowing that to penetrate every cell of your body to become your own reality and experience. So during that matter, when you sometimes find yourself that let's say your inner world doesn't match your outer world, or you feel so good alone, but when you're with other people, you can't experience the same. You quickly fall out of that space. During that time, relax yourself, take a deep breath. Feel how there's this light coming that's vertical. It penetrates through you. At the same time, when it comes and reaches your heart, it expands and it goes horizontal as well. You can even create this movement, the gesture with your hands. And you say, I now live in a middle space where my vertical and horizontal meet. This is the space of the absolute now. As a master of polarity, here is where I exist. All this is joined here in my sacred heart essence, the cosmic heart space of one. And I allow myself to fully feel that the vertical and horizontal always coexist as one. This is how we start merging with all experiences perceived as one. And when we really start to invite our sacredness into every aspect of our lives. A lot of us have been saying, oh, I'm just here to serve, or I'm just here to assist. I don't always find it pleasant on this planet, but I got to do this healing. Sometimes it's pain, and we still believe we need to have this pain to grow. It's not true. It's just something we've been feeding ourselves from this tiny little compartment that we take as the absolute, but it's not the absolute, my beloveds. We made it so, and that we is not the divine self that knows so much more, so much greater, so much grander. And what we do at those times is just allow the openness to show us a new way. All we need to do is be open, because sometimes we have this pride energy that says, I already know it all, this is how it is, I gotta do this healing, I gotta do this is how it is, this reality, this darkness, it is how it is. And I believe I'm going to be only fully happy once I get this healing complete, all of this, it's not complete freedom in the now. All I can do is observe, and I wish for everybody to remember that. And it's not my job, because remembrance comes from within, living that comes from within. Everybody needs to have their own experience of it. And once we do that, that's when true soul's freedom of our source, of our birthright comes forth. We got to make this choice, nobody else. In the years to come, there's going to be a lot of the choices that are going to physically show us how much we're still feeding the old and how much we really are in the new, which is that space of infinite soul freedom, of belonging, always belonging in your source. You have a unique correspondence, connection, communion with source that nobody else has. This is called your I am presence. That's what you feel and receive in a very unique way that nobody else ever will. This makes you unique. Your individualized I am presence is you, and it makes you you. It's not a personalized experience in a way that you become attached to certain labels or personification. It's just an individuality, identity that is divine, not identity that is personal. And when it is divine, it will come through love. That identity won't come through fear. And when we really will be brave enough, courageous enough to say, wait a minute, maybe I'm not seeing everything the way I think I do, and we allow that pride, because sometimes, when Osho says that if you're too smart, sometimes it kind of harms you and it creates more damage, because a lot of times when we know too much, we don't allow ourselves to just experience in a way that maybe new knowledge will come and it will override that current knowledge. That's called wisdom. It's not the same as knowledge. There is no knowledge without understanding it. And a lot of souls, I see, they really are so thirsty for knowledge, and they want to know everything, and yet they don't have the capacity of soul awareness to really process. Sometimes it takes time to integrate everything. That's why when we trust, we know that our soul always gives us as much as we're willing to process through understanding. And when we have this understanding that is really coming from spirit knowing and our soul as one, we will have this greater clarity and that clean space where we'll be able to create anew. So moving into 2015 and beyond, for a lot of souls who have done this advancement level, they will really feel that freedom. They will feel that they're just going to dive into all these creative experiences and outlines, how they can express themselves, and they're just going to show the way. For a lot of others, it's still going to be lots of need to release those old stories. And how we perceive healing. Is healing really an infinite journey? Or is healing just something that, again, if it's not in proper balance and understanding, we can a lot of times use it as an excuse. Say, yeah, I'm not going to fully engage in this because I'm still healing. So, one thing is to be patient and compassionate in this physical embodiment journey. Another thing is sometimes using things as an excuse. It's not the same thing. Anything that we still overly overdose with in a way, it will create an imbalance. And I talked to this person last night, and I said, sometimes when we motivate ourselves too much, like, you got to power through this. Come on, you can do it. You got to have a high frequency at this time. Come on. What we do is we move ourselves in some projection of what we want, and this overly stimulated motivation sometimes doesn't really serve for our highest good. Because we need to embrace how we feel now, because those feelings speak to us on levels beyond just what our mind thinks. And as we perceive and integrate and have an understanding about those feelings, we will be able to find that new space. What else can maybe be there? So, time to live our magician self. 2015 is approaching. Like many astrologers say that the year will actually begin in March, and we will have the last grand square alignment, Uranus-Pluto alignment will be in March. And I say last because there's always going to be new alignments. This was a current cycle. I think it was happening since 2012. And until now, this was this transition period which really helped us. It made us stronger. And now Jupiter went again retrograde until that very same time period. So our year will actually begin with the new astrological year with the sign of Aries. And this is when the new year will really begin. And during that time, we still have this shaft of light when we're really gathering those things and we're processing through deep understanding. So use this time, work for your advancement, not for more of limitation, because we need to experience a greater sense of freedom. If we're not, then we really have to honestly ask ourselves, if I'm not constantly being more free and more loving and more expanding, then am I really, really expanding? Or am I maybe, perceiving something as a blockage or something there? Remember, in truth, there's no blockages, only that which we perceive as a blockage. That always comes through us. So there's always an infinite supply. So if something feels like it's stagnant, sometimes we might use the excuse of, I might be healing for so long. And what we do at that time is we subtract ourselves from the great pool of love that's always there. And we say, yeah, maybe others can experience it, but I still gotta walk this huge journey of healing. Why? Because everything is always in the now. Source love is in the now. It's always there. It's absolute. It's pure joy. And if we can't feel it, if we only feel it very rarely, and most of the times we feel like we're overwhelmed with so many things, and we really gotta ask ourselves, where in our lives, where in our journey are we standing still without even being aware of it? These are these inner sabotages that sometimes we're not aware of it. And I feel that this Jupiter retrograde will really help us with this until next year in March really begins. So this is my Ascension update, beloved ones. I hope to share with you as much as I can in these times. It's going to be holidays, so maybe I'm going to be more absent than usual. Please check out my Facebook page because I still have a very special offer. And anyway, when you donate to Ascension Pioneers, or you make an energy exchange to whatever kind of personal services that I'm offering, you will be put in my Santa stocking, and you will be able to win a free Skype session with me in January. So take a look at that. And as always, so much love, wisdom, and power, and I'll talk to you soon.